So while I was editing Disney videos, which will be posted later, I realized I had never done my Biltmore video from when I had gone to Biltmore House. So I quickly did that, and this is just a little wrap up. So while I was there, I saw the King Tut exhibit. It was it was okay. I'm a big King Tut fan. I've been since I was little. I read everything I could possibly get my hands on in elementary school and since then. Um, so it was a little disappointing. I'm not gonna lie. I think this was many years ago when I was in middle school. I think his actual treasures went on tour in Atlanta when I was in middle school, and my school went to see it. If not, they were replicas. And it was so much bigger. There was so much stuff that I actually remember teachers having to rush me through because it was an audio tour, and so I was listening to everything. And my teacher was like, Zoe, we gotta go. Um, so I was kind of expecting something like that. It wasn't. It was basically one room where they kind of give you like the history of Egypt and a little bit of the history of King Tut and all that stuff, finding the tomb and all that. And then after that, you go into this room and you watch this movie um, about the discovery again. And then you move into the next part where it's like you stumbled into the tomb for the first part and it's all the treasures lined up against the wall and everything, um, which I have pictures of. You saw the videos of it and that kind of stuff. Um, and then you move on to when they actually got the sarcophagi and got to see the sarcophagi and everything. And then you move into another room where it's all the treasures and everything. My audio, actually, even that, I had an issue with the audio because when I was in watching the video, it was picking up the audio from the next part where they're discovering the tomb, and it wouldn't play when everyone else's one was playing when I moved that. So I actually had to go back. I just stood at the exit door, listening to the movie again, so that it would work properly. Um, it and it was very cool to see. It was very cool to visually see how they would see it. I've seen pictures of it, of when they discovered the tomb, but it's very cool to see all the objects stacked like that. Um, but one of the things is, I think a lot of the artifacts they move, and when you move into the final room with all the treasures and everything, there is, um, uh, I think a lot of it they also put there, but some of it they didn't, and so I felt a little disappointed because I wanted to like look at the tables and all that. You didn't get to see those, um, stuff like that, and it was kind of underwhelming. I wish there would have been more artifacts. I felt like it was very, very underwhelming for the hype it was getting. Still very cool and all that. It was also very interesting to listen to the audio guide and hear some of the things like they kept bringing up. Obviously, it was interesting to hear that his death was very sudden. I knew that, and we've always talked about back and forth with us, but to see all the artifacts and they're like, this was obviously going to be used for someone else, but they put the king's name on it, and this was obviously going to be used for someone else, and they put the king's name on it. So it was very interesting to see that, and it was also kind of heartbreaking knowing that he died so young. We don't actually know the final reason why. His mummy caught fire, and it started decomposing. It's actually still in the tomb. He is the only mummy that we have found, his tomb, and he is back in his tomb because it was starting to decompose. We couldn't preserve it, and so they put him back in his tomb, which is actually kind of sad. He's just in there on a table with a blanket. It's actually a little sad. Um, but it was also kind of, you read about these artifacts, but then to see them and maybe get a little more explanation where most people probably wouldn't. Like, I had heard about the two female mummies in his tomb. That was his daughters. But there was also, I think what gripped me and squeezed my heart a little bit was the lock of his grandmother's hair. You don't think about things like that. We do now, but it's that connection and that kind of human experience of he wanted to have something of his grandmother's close, even in the afterlife. It was very sweet. And you to see all the imagery. I mean, if you'll see I took, oh, let me explain also, these are not good photos and videos. On the website they said you could only use cell phone video, not professional cameras and all that. And I'm a rule follower, so I just took my cell phone, and then, but while I was there was people taking, you know, with professional cameras and all that kind of stuff, but I didn't bring my nice camera. So that's why the videos are like, okay, they're not great, not with this camera, because I didn't bring this camera because I thought it wasn't allowed. So that's why it's so short. There's not a lot of video. There's mostly pictures for everything, but that's why. But back to the imagery of the King Tut, you could see where they had like prisoners and certain countries that they had conquered, those people from them, on like his sandals, showing his representation of, you know, standing on top of them, or on the chairs with his little footrest, and it was those same people because he's standing on top of them. It's just very interesting to see that imagery that we don't always have today. So I was kind of unimpressed with the King Tut exhibit. I was hoping for more things. It sounded like they had like tons and tons of artifacts and everything, and it was just felt very underwhelming artifact wise. But I did love going to the Biltmore House. If you ever get a chance to see the Biltmore House, go see it. I saw it when it was the first time I saw it was during Christmas time, which is just beautiful. It's beautiful normal, but if you go during Christmas time, it's even more beautiful because it's decorated with garland and lights and bows and poinsettias and everything. It's just gorgeous. But this was my first time seeing it not Christmas, and it was actually very pretty. And I apologize now for, you'll see all the pictures of the ceilings. That's one of my things in old houses. I will look up at the ceilings because they decorate the ceilings. You know, nowadays you look at ceilings and it's just, oh, white, or maybe it's painted, but it's not usually decorated like those. But it was just a beautiful house, and it just gave me, as a writer, I was like, I want to write a story with this kind of theme. Don't know what story I'd write, but I want to be like, I want to use a house like this for a story. But it was just gorgeous, and I love the audio tour, and I love seeing the little details that, as a person that loves history, most people talk about. Like you'll see I took pictures of the little room names, and that's how you would be able to identify what room you were in. Like one's the chimney room and all that. And most people will think like, how would they know what room they're staying in this big house? Well, because you'd be told you're staying in the chimney room, and then you would be directed to the chimney room. And if you were going back along your way, oh, that's the chimney room. That's where I'm staying. You know, that little things like that you just aren't talked about like in movies and TV shows, because they're not like important to the storyline. But as a history nerd, you kind of get to geek out a little bit. But yeah, that was basically it. It was a short little video. But I enjoyed the Biltmore House more than the King Tut exhibit, which was disappointing. I was hoping for it to be reverse, or both equally blown away by both. But yeah, that's it, and I will see you guys in the next video.